Hello internet, and today I'm gonna give you my wrap up. The books that I read in May. May was a busy month for me. May had a lot of things happening. I've been spotty, I know, because May was troubling, it was trifling, things were happening. So I moved states in May. I graduated from college in May. I got a new job in May. And all three things happened at the same time. Fortunately, I guess, but still, it was a lot to take on. And I had a little bit of issue, but I did get some reading done, and that is what we're here to talk about. At the end of the month, what my stats are is a total of 18 books. Too short from my average, but hey, 18 books. And I read a total of 12 in physical copy and a total of 6 on audiobook, which sounds strange, especially when you look back at my other wrap-ups. I usually have a majority audio and then only a couple in physical, but the job that I got, my boss lets me read on time. So like, she pays me to read while I'm at work, because she's like, I don't want you getting bored while you're waiting for people to show up. You can read a book. So guess what I be doing at work? Reading books. So yeah, that's how come I still have a high number, and why my physical count is so high compared to what it is in previous months. But like, whatever. We're just gonna move on to books that I did read and what I thought about them. So I'm gonna try to leave timestamps below because I know some of you care about those things. And let's go. So first we're going to start with the audiobooks because that is the shorter list here. And the first audiobook I read is going to be Autonomous by Annalee Nuetz. This is a strange book. It is an adult sci-fi book that talks about queerness and sexuality, while also talking about AI and how it relates to AI. So there is a character in this who is an AI robot, Android is an android, but also has to deal with their own sexuality and gender pronouns and stuff like that. And it's a really interesting way to have a conversation. We also have human characters who are queer, and stuff like that. This main story revolves around this woman who is a medicine pirate. She lives in a society where medicine is patented by certain companies and it is very, very expensive. So she uses her brains to replicate them and then sell them. However, she sold a bad drug because it turned out the company was doing something they shouldn't have, and she didn't double check to make sure that the drug was safe. And now she is on the run because it's getting out that this drug is very, very dangerous, and this drug is connected to a certain company, and this company does not want their stocks to go down. So they're trying to get rid of her before this all comes out and they get the blame, which they rightfully should. So it's about her and her on the run, and it tells a lot about like her backstory and what she's doing now. And it also follows the android and the android's partner who are chasing her. So it's a very interesting read. I don't know if it's like good or it's bad. I think the most interesting part about it was this conversation about sexuality and this conversation about AIs, because I really like robots and artificial intelligence. So I loved that conversation, and I liked how it was pointing out, hey, because of what AI are, and the type of autonomy that we have, the way we would think about sexuality wouldn't exactly be the same as humans do, but like they're trying to work in the realm of human definitions because like they have to, because they're talking to humans. But like, that was really interesting, so I liked it well enough. It was a good read. Not my favorite, but I had some interesting conversations that I was here for. The next 3 books I read on audiobook are this middle grade mystery series. The first book is 3 Times Lucky. The second book is The Ghost of Tupelo Landing, and the third book is The Odds of Getting Even. This is following 2 6th graders, Mo, who is our main character, and her best friend Dale. They live in this small town and they end up starting their own detective agency together when in the first book a man of the community ends up murdered. And throughout this whole series they're figuring out different crimes in each book and trying to solve them with their own little detective agency. I really like the believability factor of this. I think that there's a lot sometimes with middle grade you have to suspend your disbelief because you're like, I don't know any kid that would act like that. Like, not to diss kids, but sometimes I'm like, that seems like a little adult. That doesn't seem like an 11-year-old kid, because Lord knows I wasn't that smart when I was 11. But in this series, you really get the feel that they are 6th graders, and a lot of their solving crimes and stuff really feels like what it would feel like if you're just like an intelligent 6th grader trying to go about trying to solve a crime. I really like the adults in this because they weren't all idiots. There was a lot of times where the adults would be like, sit down, let me take care of it, but you actually trust that the adults were going to try to do their best. It just so happened that Mo and Dale know a few too many secrets and have a few too many connections that kind of get them the lead on solving these crimes. So I really like that. I think one of my favorite parts about the series was Mo has a crush on her best friend's brother, this boy named Lavender. He's like 18, and throughout the whole thing it's a really innocent crush that she's always mentioning, and instead of making it weird and cringy, it's really done in a nice way where it's like, yeah, that's just what young girls who have crushes on older boys are like. She talks to the boy, he knows that she has a crush, and she's always like saying like, in 7 years I'm gonna marry you. It's really funny. I thought it was cute. Like, that's not what this whole book's about. It is about them solving crimes, but I like the atmosphere of it and the atmosphere of the people, and the fact that that wasn't made cringy for me, and I could actually be like, heh, that's cute and funny because she had a crush, and I thought it was cute and that it was funny. And I like that these two were friends, because sometimes in middle grade they be trying to set up sneaky romances, and I'm just like, stop it, they're 12. I don't want to see their little romance or anything. It was just, these two were friends, and they were being friends who were friends, and it was nice. This isn't like a great mystery. It's more about these two kids and their shenanigans, more so than them actually solving an intense mystery, but it is a lot of good fun, and I had a good time. I ended up getting really invested. The whole series is by Shayla Turnage, so yeah. I think there's a 4th book, but I just own these 3, and I read all 3 of them, and I enjoyed myself. Next, I read Stranger Than FanFiction, and I can't remember the author on this. This is about it takes place in a world where there is this very, very popular show called Whiz Kids. Whiz Kids is like infamous, famous, it's all the things. It is one of the top rating TV programs ever. I guess you would compare it, people's obsession to it, to people's obsession with like Doctor Who, Supernatural, and Harry Potter, like things like that. People love this show, and it is discussing the story of the main actor who is in this show and his life, and also the life of 4 friends who are deciding to go on a road trip. One of the friends decides, as kind of like a joke, to email the actor and be like, hey, we're going on a road trip, you could come to this place, to this address, and you can join us on a road trip. And lo and behold, the guy actually shows up. So we have this interesting kind of moment where these 4 are kind of having to confront the idea that their hero, the person who kind of helped them all be friends because they're all Whiz Kid fans and that's how they ended up friends, isn't exactly a perfect person. Also, they're dealing with their own coming of age things. One has a brother who has a disability, and he is worried about going to college because he's worried about like what it will financially mean for his family. One is a girl who has a very, very strict Asian father and wants to do something different than like go to school to be a doctor or a lawyer, and so she's really having a tough time confronting her father about it and kind of getting him to agree without her being like dishonorable to the whole family, you know. One is a boy who is the son of a preacher who is also gay, and he's black, so like there's a lot of issues there that he's trying to deal with like admitting to himself and like, you know, thinking like, I'm gonna go to a Christian college, how am I gonna like survive all of this and this and that. And then there is a character in here that is going through a transition, so they're having trouble coming out to their friends and telling their friends, hey, this is what's going on, this is what my preferences are and stuff like that. So there's a lot of coming of age stuff that I think is handled really well. And the idea of like you meeting your hero and them just be a pretty garbage person compared to like the sort of idolization you had for them. And I really liked how this pretty asshole actor kind of brought out and helped all of these kids in their coming of age story and really helped them let loose, even though so he was not the best influence, okay? He was not. Towards the end, it was a little bit cliche, and I was just like, man, I wish I had a rich actor friend. But overall, it was a pretty good book. Like, I don't know what I expected for the ending. Like, there really wasn't any place for that ending to go, rather other than be like that super cliche ending that you would expect. But I thought it was a good book. It was a good coming of age story that handled each character really well and gave them all their own little voice. Despite having so many points of views and so many characters, I felt like they were all treated pretty evenly across the board, that I really got to know each character. And I thought it was interesting, some of the conversations that they had. So I had a good time with that book. And then the last audiobook I read was Studying Charlotte by Brittany Cavallero. I did not like this book. I know there are tons of people on BookTube who love this book. Blonde with a Book, I believe, is her BookTube name. She loves this book. I see her on Twitter talking about it all the time. It's just like, oh my gosh, I have this book, I'll try reading it. I didn't like it, okay? I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't enjoy the character of Jamie. There's a lot of like gripe issues I have, but one of the biggest gripe issues was I really just wanted a friendship between Jamie and Charlotte. Oh, I forgot to tell you what this book's about. So Studying Charlotte is just a Sherlock Holmes retelling, but instead the Sherlock of this book is going to be Sherlock Holmes's great-great-granddaughter, and the Watson of this book is going to be Watson's great-great-great-grandson. They end up going to the same school, they end up meeting, and they end up becoming friends, and there is a crime that happens that kind of gets pinned on them that they're going to try to solve so that they can be free and seen as innocent, really clear their names, right? So I didn't really like Jamie. I wanted a friendship between Jamie and Charlotte first. There was a lot of romantic undertones going on here that I wasn't really a fan of. Not that I didn't expect that it was probably going to end up that they were going to have a romance anyway. Like, that's not the problem I had. It was mainly just that Jamie shows up day one and he's already having like romantic interest in Charlotte. He also has his own like warped view of how she's supposed to be based on like hearing all the stories about the Watsons and the Holmes, and then him having his little fantasies about like them being partners in crime and stuff like that. So there's like a lot of that where I was just like, Jamie, like, learn about who the real girl is instead of your fantasies. Also, there's a lot of points where he's just like doing stuff because he's attracted to her and he's always thinking about how attractive she is, and I'm just like, can't you guys just be friends? Then there's the fact that they meet each other day one and Jamie's already like, she's my best friend and my only friend, and I'm like, dude, like, she just like called you out, like she insulted you several times, and like she's your only friend and best friend. Like, there's just a lot of things with Jamie I didn't really like. I like Charlotte, but I did not really care for Jamie all that much. I really didn't care for a lot of the things going on. Like I said, Jamie just wasn't my favorite. There's a lot of different gripes I have, but like that was the main issue, was I didn't like Jamie. Also, fair warning, there is a rape that occurs in this book that no one gives you warning for. I went in this and I was like, oh, it's just gonna be a crime, but there is a rape that is talked about. I don't think they go, if I remember correctly, they don't go into like vivid detail about it, but it is mentioned, it is discussed. We do know what happened, we do know what went wrong, we do know who's responsible, we do know who it happened to, and there's like a few chapters where this is the main topic of discussion. This is not the crime that they are trying to solve, but it is related, and no one warned me, okay? So if like that is something that you need warning about, I am warning you right now. There is a rape that goes on in this book that no one really ever talks about, and I was not expecting it, so you better expect it. Now on to physical books that I read. First we have Snotgirl Volume 2 by Brian Lee O'Malley. I really didn't like the first volume, and I ended up buying the second volume because I just love the artwork and I'm so intrigued. My main problem with this series is that I find it to be really confusing. It's one of those series where I think would be better understood and better enjoyed if you had the complete series in front of you and you could just read back to back to back, because it has a very intriguing storyline that can be highly confusing. So I did like the second volume more than I liked the first volume, but that's mainly because it was a continuation of the story, so I was slowly learning more and I was slowly getting less confused. Not that I'm no longer confused, but I'm just simply less confused. But it is very pretty artwork and I really like the artwork. So yeah. I don't know how to feel about this series yet, but I'm probably still going to keep buying the volumes whenever they come out, which will probably be in like the next 5 years. So it's a long wait, but hey, it's decent enough that I buy it, so you know. Then we have Papergirls Volume 3. I didn't really like this book. This follows girls who are like in this weird time loop timeline thingamajig. The third volume was the worst. I was okay with volume 1 and 2, but the third volume was just pretty ugh. And I didn't really like it. And that's all I'm gonna say there. Then we have Kaptara Volume 1. This follows a guy who is a terraform scientist along with his team. They're supposed to go to this different planet to terraform it. They end up getting sucked into a black hole. They end up landing on this weird fantasy world, and it follows this kid, and he is supposed to try to find everybody else, try to help the fantasy world, doing whatever he's doing, having adventures, stuff like that. The character in this kind of just reminds me of like Styles from Teen Wolf. And like the sarcastic nature. The main character of this is also gay. Not that that's like really the main point. I just wanted to mention it because it was something to be mentioned. And he's a person of color. So like, you know, not that that has really anything to do with anything, but you know, it's nice to know that those things happen. I liked his character. I thought he was fun. This volume wasn't the best for me. I think I'll try to continue it, but there's this one character in it that I really didn't like, and the second half of this volume really focused on that character, and I was just like, oh my god, please be over. But I do like the main character, and I do like the concept of the story, because I think sci-fi and fantasy should probably blend a little bit more than it does. So I did like having sci-fi and fantasy blend and having a main character that was a pretty sarcastic asshole. Like, he was pretty great. Next we have Lagoon by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a science fiction novel that is about aliens coming to Lagos, Nigeria, and how Lagos, Nigeria reacts. So there's 3 main characters who kind of get wrapped up in this because they end up sort of helping the spokesperson of the alien race. There's also a lot of weird things happen. This is multiple point of views. The main point of the story is just to discuss how different people are going to react to this alien race who come, and also there are weird side effects when this alien race comes, because Nnedi Okorafor has this tendency to add in mythological legendary stuff and folklore that happens in Nigeria and that is popular in Nigeria, like masquerades and stuff like that, and Wati and this water woman and stuff. So they also appear in this book, so you also get this sense of like mystical folklore stuff along with your sci-fi. Ends up being a very strange but very interesting book. But like the only like real plot I can tell you and like to give you a warning of what's happening is like it's multiple points of view, right? And it's all of these different people in Lagos reacting to aliens appearing and all of these weird things that are happening as sort of a consequence, both from the aliens and because the mystical beach creatures that just live in Nigeria are reacting as well. You know, it's a good book. It was interesting. There was a lot going on, but it ended up being pretty decent. It's a strange book, but a good one. Next, I have Low, Volumes 1 and Volumes 2. This is a science fiction book about humans who they ended up leaving the land because the land just got populated and like pretty bad. So they end up building cities underwater, and it follows a family and them trying to figure out how to get back to land, because they have a suspicion and some information that's telling them that there is some clean land out there, and the oxygen that is left in the marine underwater cities is slowly running out, and they're going to die really soon. A bunch of horrible shit happens to this family, like just terrible stuff happens to this family all the time. You think they're doing good, but then it turns out like no, they're not doing good. It's pretty tragic, and they have like horrible luck. So that's basically what it is. I thought most of the story was good, right? There's a few pacing issues that are pretty weird. There's a few pages that you're just like, oh my god, this is too much information. I don't really like this. But overall, the concept of the story is really good. It needs a little work on some of the pacing. Most definitely, some of the pacing is pretty bad, and there are certain pages where it's just so slow, and then certain pages where you're just like, oh my god, everything's happening at once. Can you please slow down, because like these people don't have good luck. Overall, I liked it. I had a good time, but it wasn't the best. Like I think that was mainly because of the pacing. The pacing's off, but otherwise it's pretty good. Next, I read The Only Living Boy. This is another graphic novel. This is about a boy who ends up like somehow in this portal fantasy where there are no other humans. They're just like other sentient beings, like mermaids and like moth princesses and like lizard men and like, you know, stuff like that. This fantasy world, and he ends up there and he has amnesia and he doesn't remember anything, and he is the only living human in this world, and so stuff goes down there. This kind of reads like a middle grade graphic novel. It was okay. Not a lot happened. It gave me enough time to ship these two women together, but like other than that, not a lot happened there. So I think that's something you probably need more than one volume for you really to enjoy, because like I was like, why does this boy have amnesia? What happened? Because like he remembered, but then he didn't, but then he sort of remembers, but no, I just didn't understand that concept. But otherwise, it seemed like it had promise. Next thing I'm gonna mention reading is At the Edge of the Universe by Sean David Hutcherson. This is a part of the Shani Darko universe. This follows a kid whose boyfriend has disappeared. His existence has been written out of the universe, and he can't figure out why. He's the only one who remembers his boyfriend. So it's like following him and him struggling to kind of reconcile this idea that he's the only one who remembers his boyfriend. He's become friends with like this kid at school that he's never really talked to before. He's dealing with problems with his family and with like his friends, and also the universe is shrinking, so like, you know, all this normal stuff's happening. I think this is my least favorite Sean David Hutcherson book. It's still good, and I think the only reason why I really enjoyed it and ended up liking it is the potential it had when it connects to the larger Shani Darko universe, which includes like We Are the Ants and Elena Mendoza and even the 5 Stages of Andrew Bradley, but as a standalone, like if I didn't know that it was connected to other books that I really liked of his, I probably wouldn't like this one. Not because it's bad, like it's still a very good book. It's just like none of the characters are likable, and they're not even an likable character. Like they're unlikable, but you end up liking them even though they're unlikable. No, these people are just unlikable, and you're just like, ugh, I don't like you. Like, so that's how I felt most of the time for the duration of this book. I did understand most of their motivations, and like again, because of like my theories of what's going on in the Shani Darko universe, I do have some theories for why everybody was so shit in this book. But the thing is, like, there's just not likable characters, and it's really hard for me to read this book and not like any of them. And like, I don't think every character has to be a likable person, but usually I like unlikable people. Like, one of my favorite characters is freaking Lord Voldemort. I think I understand the concept of liking unlikable people, but these people are just unlikable. You can't even like their unlikability. That's how unlikable they are in most of this book. But otherwise, the rest of it was pretty okay. With that, I also read the short story collection by Sean David Hutcherson, What We Pretend to Be. This is sort of following more along the Sluggers, and it gives you a little sneak peek of like what happened when Henry was first adopted. Henry is the main character of We Are the Ants. So this is like 26 pages. It's a short story collection. You can find it online, and it just details a bunch of different people that the sluggers have abducted and gives you a little bit more idea of the sluggers' motivation. So I read that 5 out of 5 stars for those couple stories because it was really good fodder for my what do you call it, conspiracy theory of what is going on in the Shani Darko universe. Next we have The Strange Talents of Luther Strange. This was a weird comic for me. I liked the concept of the comic, but certain parts of the execution were done a little poor, but I'm willing to continue with this series. So this is about a kid named Luther Strange. He's just like your average teenage kid. He ends up finding out like there is this like little paper pamphlet that is at the back of the newspaper that's like an exercise pamphlet. He ends up ordering it. It's free, so he's like, oh yeah, I just want to buff up. And it ends up being a pamphlet to a murder cult, and by going through the training in this pamphlet, he ends up accidentally joining a murder cult where they train your body to automatically murder people to death. Like, you be chopping through heads, you be like almost bulletproof, be able to take so much pain, you control of every single muscle in your body. Like, there's a lot of stuff like that. So the murder cult aspect and the fact that this 16-year-old kid accidentally joins one, those were pretty good concepts. The girlfriend issue was a little like, oh, okay. His friend, okay. But like the murder cult stuff was pretty good. It is pretty gruesome. There's like a lot of gratuitous violence happening. But you know, what did you expect? This guy accidentally joined a murder cult. So how do you accidentally join a murder cult? You know. Next we have The Lost Cipher by Michael O'Shea. I don't think I said that right. This is about a boy who ends up going to summer camp, except it's a very special type of summer camp. This is a summer camp for kids who have recently lost one of their parents, or it's like recently lost a parent, and they're supposed to like go here to heal and stuff and just do regular camp activities, but understanding that the people around them are people also going through the same thing. However, near this camp there is supposedly buried treasure, and these kids are somehow going to find it. It's like $1 million worth of treasure. When I originally picked this book up, I thought it was going to be The Goonies, because it was like, oh, these kids are going to run off and try to find treasure because, you know, financial problems. It's not The Goonies. It's just about some kids who end up getting lost in the woods purely by accident, really, and because another kid's really mean. Nothing like The Goonies. And like, yes, they do get money, but again, that's circumstantial, really. Nothing really epic happens. It's just like a bunch of kids who are like being friends and hiking and doing camp stuff, I guess. It's not a bad book. I just wanted The Goonies, and it wasn't The Goonies. Unfortunately, not every camping gotta find money book is The Goonies, but you know. Now I just gotta go watch The Goonies because I really loved The Goonies as a kid. That was one of my favorite movies. And the last book I have here to mention is Bygone Badass Broads, and this is by Mackenzie Lee. It's 52 short little biopics of amazing women who have been forgotten, and they probably shouldn't have been because they've done some amazing stuff. I really like this. Nonfiction is a tricky subject for me because I need certain authors when it comes to reading nonfiction because I want to be entertained as well as informed and not just bored out of my mind. Fortunately enough, Mackenzie Lee has humor that she brings to the table, and the way that she discusses these women and their feats and stuff like that really entertains you because the way she describes stuff, you're just like, that's a hilarious way to describe it, and I love it. So it gives you facts and humor and keeps you fairly entertained. Like I said, the biopics are pretty short, so they're easy to swallow, and you really get the picture of this woman's life and each woman they're talking about. Of course, like, you would have to look up more about them if you really wanted to do an in-depth study, but I think for like the little biopics that have happened in here, they were really cohesive and really easy to understand, and really like you understood why each woman was here and probably shouldn't be forgotten, because there was a lot of women in here that I was like, why don't we discuss that woman more? Because she was fairly amazing. So yeah, I love this. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And I highly suggest it. It's a great nonfiction book. So if you don't traditionally like nonfiction, you'll probably like this. This does have 52 different women, and each woman is from like a different place, a different country, a different time period, different color skin, different sexualities. Like, Mackenzie Lee really went all out here and brought you different women who did all these awesome things, and it's really amazing, and I liked it. Plus, it's really pretty. One of the prettiest nonfiction books I have ever seen. So that is also a plus. So that is it for the books that I read in the month of May. I was really worried I wasn't going to read a lot this month. Not like that it's a competition or that I have to read 20 books a month. But you know what? I have like a streak going on here, and averaging around 20 is what I am meant to do this year. So I'm glad that I ended up getting up towards 20. I was short 2 books, but like I was lazy at the end of the month. I just ended up reading like a bunch of fan fiction and manga, but you know what? I did good. I did good. Despite all the busyness, I did really well for myself. So I'm pretty proud. Yeah. Read these books. Don't read these books. I just wanted to tell you what I read because I did. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies down below. And goodbye, internet.